All rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez, absent. Councilman Cullen.
Here.
Councilwoman Eckhart. Here. Councilwoman Hudak.
Here.
Supervisor Hay.
Here. Notation of the exits in the front and the rear. Any electronic device, please put it on vibrate. First item on the agenda is a presentation from Mr. John Woolman, Office of Real Property Tax Services, the 2014 Excellence in Equity Award. Lori Bell and Mr. Woolman, please come to the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'm very happy to be here tonight. This is one of the times I can honestly say it's fun to come to a public meeting, because typically public meetings dealing with property tax are not always pleasant. But I'm here tonight to recognize that this is the 14th year, 2014 is the 14th year that the town of Southeast has maintained an assessment roll at 100% of value, and therefore has an equitable assessment roll. Very, very briefly, the importance of this, well, I think everyone realizes that the town's assessment roll is the basis of the distribution for county, town, school district, and special district taxes. Essentially, the degree to which the town's assessments reflect market value is the degree to which people pay a fair share of property tax, and no more and no less. And again, the town has been doing this for 14 years, so the town's assessor's office, in this case Lori, deserves a great deal of credit for doing all the hands-on work, and equally, the supervisor and the town board deserve a great deal of credit for supporting this program, because again, it's meant to ensure to the greatest degree possible that all property owners are paying only their fair share of property tax, no more, no less. So with that, we have a little certificate. The certificate is very humble, but the appreciation behind it is much bigger than that. We really are genuinely appreciative of the town's efforts to do this. We know that there are some other towns in Putnam County that are doing this, but there's certainly plenty of towns south of Putnam and Westchester that are not, and we do hope that the town of Southeast's example in doing this will have some influence in other municipalities to provide equity to their property owners. So again, thank you to the supervisor and the board for supporting this effort, and thank you to Lori and her staff for doing all the work year in and year out.
Lori? Now, the only negative to this whole thing that you always talk about in public, in speaking, bottom line, she's gonna want a bigger office and put all the plaques. Well, that's what I mean.
Running out of
You're
wall
gonna have
space.
space. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you
We
very much.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you.
you.
Okay, tonight we have 3 public hearings. I'm going to ask we waive the reading of the public hearing notices on each. First one will be Comcast of New York, LLC. It's a contract extension. It's a 15-year contract with Comcast. One thing the town has requested, which they have agreed to put in, it's a term of non-exclusivity, meaning that the town of Southeast is open for business for any other cable contract company that wishes to come. I know many of you wish that Verizon Fios was in town. I think it's the biggest issue that my office faces on a weekly and a yearly basis since I've been here. A lot of people seem to want it. Fios and Verizon have stated basically the answer to that is no. They don't have the funds at this point in time or interested in coming into the town of Southeast. But don't ever let anyone tell you that the town of Southeast is not interested in competition, and that's written into the contract. So with that, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on Comcast of New York LLC contract.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone to speak to the Comcast contract? You will have another bite of the apple. Well, not so much to speak, but to, make notice to the town. It's on the internet, on our webpage for you to review. And with such, and seeing no one in the audience wishing to speak to this, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second item on the agenda is the Grace Assembly of God. I make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. You need anything?
Easel?
I thought you were gonna bring one to the.
So is this what they're doing?
I thought it was a 10. I don't know what that is.
They got it. Don't
I was
trip.
looking for the user.
Our videographer is our helper. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Well, there goes that bill.
He wears many hats, except he doesn't wear one hat.
Yeah, just make sure that the audience can see it since it's public hearing for them.
This is.
You,
Oh, this is okay.
and just for the public, before she starts to speak, why don't you identify yourself first?
Jamie Keeper from Inside Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture.
And the gentleman behind you is,
Raymond Mellon, the pastor of Grace.
okay. Just so the public knows, the proposed site, if you know the area on the junction of North Brewster Road and 312, when you're coming on North Brewster Road to 312, the firehouse on your left, there's a small, open little field on the right, which is ready for development for somebody, and straight across the street is the property that is the topic of discussion this evening. Go ahead.
The project consists of a proposed tent for the use of a house of worship. Pastor Ray wishes to perform worship services on the property. It was an existing single-family residence site, and now he'd like to use it in addition to the house that's already there. He'd like to also have worship services there. With the project, we also proposed a 36-space gravel parking area and a small utility shed. The project conforms with the uses of the general permit for the property, except for a few setback variances that we're actually seeking tonight for the shed and the parking. So tonight we're here for review of the special permit and for a referral to the zoning board for variances.
Okay. I just had a question to ask.
That was basically it.
Okay. The public wish to speak to the matter? Yes, ma'am. So when you come up to the mic, if you would, state your name for the record.
Hi, Erin Otley, 22 Killian Lane. My property is alongside Ray's property, and I guess my concern is, there were many concerns that were brought to the zoning board's attention, and I just wanted to know if those things were answered.
Well, they've gone to the planning board thus far. They've addressed, I believe, many, if not all, the issues. They still have to go to what you call the zoning board. There's another shot at that. We, as a town board, are looking at the special permit aspects. The planning board is going through all the issues pertaining to setbacks, DOT permits, everything of that nature. You still have, they still will be going to the ZBA, where you can, again, ask any questions. You'll be notified as a resident within 500 feet of the site for when they go in front of that as well. So have they addressed, I believe they addressed many. They still have to go back. They're only here tonight to come to us to make us aware they're going to be applying for a special permit from the town. We don't act on it this evening. It will now go back to planning to make them know, and then where's it come?
Well, there's an issue, there's a question which has not been resolved yet.
And wait.
I'm sorry, there are a number of the special conditions of the special permit that you do not meet. And those are generally things that are not variable. In order to get a special permit, you've got to meet those special conditions that are set forth in the provisions of the zoning code. You meet the general conditions for a special permit, but not the special conditions for this particular use in a residential zone. So I think there's a legal issue that has to be resolved as to whether or not you can seek a variance for that And if the variance is, can be sought, then that would be something that the ZBA would handle. But generally, when you have special conditions in a special permit, they're not something that are generally variable. You've got to meet those conditions to be able to get the special permit. You understand what I'm saying?
Can you advise, or is it public to know what it is that's causing?
Well, you know exactly. The section of the town code relating to religious institutions and as a special permit use have specific special conditions. And I believe you're quite aware of the fact that the way you've laid this out, it doesn't meet the setback requirements from the adjoining property line, which is one of the special conditions for a special permit.
Thank you.
So with that, you will still end up be going to the ZBA to request. Now, one of the items that I think Will was speaking of, I think is a 300-foot setback from
Yes.
the residential neighborhood that you're going to be requesting, and a few others. I see it in your write-up here, so you're well aware of what has
Yes.
to be done,
Yes.
and you'll move forward that. Again, this is a public hearing for them to make comment this evening, but you still will be going to the ZBA and the town attorney who, you go to the ZBA meetings as well, don't you, Will?
I do.
And the planning board meetings, and represent the council to us. So he's on top of it more than any of us because he attends all three. And maybe one of our board members as well. Anyone else from the public wish to speak to this matter? Seeing none, I'll make a
Tony,
motion.
can we ask questions?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's a public hearing. Go ahead. You want to be a member of the public? Go ahead. State your name.
I
for-
missed that,
State your name for the record.
Question, in the packet we got tonight,
Yes.
this was also, can you explain, this, part of it is the tent, which we knew. 'cause
It's
I
an
would-
alternate.
This
Yes.
would be an alternate plan, but you haven't decided yet, is that?
Correct. We are proposing an alternative plan where we'd have an actual permanent structure, a pavilion, essentially,
Right.
instead of the tent. Based on the comments that we've gotten from the public and the planning board, Pastor Ray has actually been looking into a pavilion to have a better aesthetic for the property. And that's something that we're still thinking about, but we'd love to discuss now, if
Okay.
possible.
But the pavilion was not suggested at the planning board meetings,
It
correct?
was not, no.
Okay.
We will be talking to the planning board at the staff meeting on the 16th with them.
Okay.
Because the pavilion obviously would be a year-round structure.
Correct.
However, I should never assume, if the pavilion were put up, would that also be in use roughly 6 months of the year, or would that be more often?
That's what the plan would be.
Okay.
If I can just say that, in light of some of the comments, they were saying, I'm sorry, the public was saying that we wouldn't mind if you put up a building, but a tent, it's just felt property values would go down and, felt like it's the circus is in town. So with that, just thought, something that would be aesthetic, that they're all over the place with, and some of those pictures were from like Pauling Fire Department, the Patterson Fire Department, and different places that I looked at and thought, it's like a tent, but it would be much more aesthetic, pleasing.
Do you have a bigger picture than this for the, why don't you just hold this
Yeah.
up, and then maybe the camera can zoom in on you?
Yeah.
To also do this.
Okay.
Um,
Show the circus one first. Hey, Putnam, Southeast, known for the circus,
Yeah,
but not there.
right. And-
So in essence, then, the pavilion would be the structure that you would have, sort of like what's pictured, which is that there would not be any walls, or there would be walls?
No, well, that was something to discuss, if there were, it would be basically open, but the thought was on one end toward the 8-family residence that's the closest to us, to have a wall on that end and perhaps a wall on the other end where the other residence is, but the thing to be open. And all that we would do, like for services and things like that, would be like the same thing with the tent, with vinyl sides, and just let it be an open structure.
And the anticipation would be that the pavilion would be used in the same manner and in the same way that the tent was discussed in the
Yes.
planning board?
Yes,
Because I attended the planning board meetings, and there was a lot of discussion on
yes.
how much the tent would be used.
Right, and then there was also issues thinking, well, what's it gonna be like inside the tent? How's the ground gonna be you're walking on? Is it gonna be muddy? And then issues regarding drainage, and so just thought across the boards, this might be a nicer look, a nicer feel. And like we said, we wanna be good neighbors, and it seemed to be, also, there was a concern on the planning board regarding, what if the winds come up and there's things, do you have to refasten these things? Well, these are tried and true structures, and it's not gonna cost us, we're not looking to build the church at this time. We're not ready for that thing unless a dynamic windfall comes and truckloads of people start coming out to our church.
Was it the intent to have the tent up year-round?
No, just for summer months. We couldn't, nobody could bear the cold or that kind of thing. That was not the intention.
Okay, but this kind of a structure as depicted would possibly be able to stay year-round?
The pavilion.
The pavilion would be year-round.
The pavilion, I mean, it certainly would be, you could go inside of it, but, you know, there's no heat in there, there's nothing, it's not.
But the structure itself would be year-round as
that's
opposed to the
correct.
tent which you would take down?
That's correct.
Okay.
But they do make tents that have heaters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Would that be an option that you would know?
That's not our plan.
No, it's very clear that
And a
it'll be
tent.
6 months. The only thing
Yes,
I
that's
would
our
ask
law.
with the special permit when it's written, to clarify, it says spring and fall, to just put the dates. Is it spring, the day,
Sure.
the first day of spring and the last day of fall? That might be the perfect setting of the timeline.
We can do that.
If I could ask a couple of questions.
Yes.
There are a number of special conditions in this section of the zoning code you're aware of, correct?
Yes.
That relate to these types of uses. And you cannot, I believe you've stated that you cannot meet some of those special conditions, which have to do with setbacks from adjoining residential properties.
Yes.
Have you analyzed this site every which way to determine that there's no way to possibly physically comply with those?
Yes.
Yes, the configuration of the site itself doesn't necessarily allow for you to be 300 feet away from any of the property lines and still have room to put anything anywhere. There's not, the 300 feet actually severely diminishes any like land that we could possibly use because you have the property lines.
Have you been able to provide a drawing that would show your developmental envelope if you were to comply with all the special permit requirements?
We did not provide that. We can.
I wish you would.
We can, yes. But even just looking in through here, where you have the setbacks for the wetlands that are the wetlands that are right here, you have this setback, 166 feet, and then the property line, this is 100 feet right here. So even, there's 200, you have a sliver of, you still don't even meet that 300 feet. You're well into the wetland setbacks. There are a lot of constraints on the site that don't allow for it.
Does the special permit requirement have anything to do with wetlands, or is it just purely setbacks from adjoining properties? I know we have wetland requirements for all developments.